Hello, in this section, we're going to be looking at risk and quality management through sustainability values. So let's start by defining some key concepts. The first thing that we're going to define is ethics, and then we're going to be looking at sustainability. So ethics is the branch of knowledge that deals with the moral principles that govern a person's behavior and that helps us distinguish between right and wrong. All right, so let's understand it first. Here we're talking about moral principles. So these are things that you learn that shape the way that you behave in comparison between what is right and what is wrong. There's a very interesting article by the Harvard Business Review written by Nicholas Epley and Amit Kumar that talks about how to design an ethical organization. In that article, they talk about the importance of values. They talk about the importance of thoughtful, conscious process when you're making different judgments in a business. Linking incentives, so performance-based incentives, bonuses, and things of the sort that are linked to ethical behaviors and not only to quantitative financial performance, and also incorporating different cultural norms into everyday behavior. Now, the article goes on to further clarify how important it is to put the ethical design into practice, and that this starts at the beginning of the recruitment process by including different types of requirements that are linked to ethical behaviors and ethical culture at the hiring process. Using 360 reviews for performance and for evaluations. So by 360 reviews means is a type of performance evaluation that wants to capture different perspectives of a person's behavior, not only what is related to their job description, but something that extends beyond their workplace responsibilities. Also linking ethical performance to compensation and understanding that there is not a rubber stamp solution that will work across all different types of organizations. And by that, we mean that ethics has to be an ad hoc design process. So every organization being unique, every project being unique, needs to understand how do ethical principles relate to the type of work that they're doing, how do they relate to the type of people that are working on the project, and therefore be able to design an ethical management system that reflects the values of the culture that the organization or the project are promoting. Another important term that we need to define at this stage is sustainability. Now, I'm sure that many of you have heard different definitions and interpretations of sustainability, but I want to clarify how this term really came about. It was initially introduced in 1987 by Gro Harlem Brundtland in a United Nations report that was entitled Our Common Future. Now, this report was made part of the Commission of Environment and Development and defined sustainable development as being one that will meet the needs of present generations without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Now, this definition has been quite controversial. First, it is a bit of a mouthful. And second, it's not something that rolls out of the tongue naturally, so it hasn't really gained a lot of popularity. But on the other hand, it is such a versatile definition that allows it to be applied to multiple types of settings, from sustainable development in general to sustainable communities, sustainable production, sustainable agriculture, and many other industries and spheres of business where the topic of sustainability is becoming an important factor to discuss and to embrace. Now, there's another topic that is linked to sustainability, which is the bottom line. Now, the bottom line is a term that is commonly used in business. You probably have heard the expression the bottom line before. It's not maybe only used in business, but also in everyday conversation. Now, conceptually, the bottom line essentially means to getting to the point. right? So when there's someone that keeps on talking and going on and on for a topic, and maybe going around the bush without being very specific or precise about what they want to say, you normally say, okay, so what's the bottom line? In other words, get to the point. However, literally, the bottom line essentially refers to that line at the bottom of the profit and loss statement. So this line right here. And it's referred to the bottom line because it's what helps us understand the difference between the money that came in and the money that came out, so that we know whether or not we made money or we lost money. So that's where the term bottom line usually comes from. So do you think that in business there is more than one bottom line? If so, what do you think? Well, if there's only one bottom line that matters, then where is it? Do we look for that bottom line in our quarter-on-quarter reporting? Do we look at that bottom line at the end of a financial year statement? Do we look at that bottom line based on long-term performance? Or do we look at that bottom line based on the future strategic health? So there are some issues that influence each of these type of reports and that make it difficult for us to see whether or not there is only one bottom line. Let's look at a couple of them, and mainly on some of the issues involving looking at one bottom line on quarter performance. So the question is here, what kind of metrics should we be using to measure long-term performance? Should we only look at net profit? Should we look at return on investment? Should we look at earning per share or share prices? Or specifically for projects, should we be looking at delivering on time, on budget, and meeting all scope requirements? Or is there anything else that we should factor in? Now, the reality is that all of these are very useful metrics, but they are limited in nature because they have a narrow focus and they do not necessarily reflect, right? They don't necessarily reflect the current health or the future health of the company. Let me give you a couple of examples as to why this is so. For example, let's take an oil company. And we see that a specific oil company is showing that there is an improvement in their financial performance, for example, profitability. And we see that this is this high performance, and we're using some of those mentioned accounting metrics that we talked about earlier. But what we don't know is whether or not this improvement in performance is due to the company actually making some improvement modifications to their processes, or if it's related to some external issues such as the rising oil prices. So due to the fluctuations of oil as a commodity in worldwide markets, the increase or decrease in the barrel of oil could lead to an improvement or to a lack of performance when it comes to profitability that may not be a true reflection of the organization's improved exploration techniques. So in this sense, focusing only on certain type of metrics and only on the financial bottom line does not allow us to get a full picture of the overall health of the organization. Another example, and this is something that we've all been aware of in the last couple of years, is what happened with the global financial crisis. Here we can see how financial institutions may be demonstrating earnings because of changing rates in their tradable products, or because they are commercializing a particular type of financial product. And that might be looking as if there is an increased performance for that firm. However, it might not lead to real efficiencies. So think about the level of financial performance that many institutions were showing before the financial crisis in 2008. So in other words, there was a whole structure that was being created based on faulty products, collateralized debt obligations, CDOs, synthetic CDOs, and all of these were products that were being traded but were not really that valuable. So this is another example of how certain financial KPI metrics were showing an improvement in performance, where in real terms they were not generating long-term value. So again, what is the bottom line? And well, let's clarify. I mean, we were talking about how focusing only on financial metrics is not enough, but that doesn't mean that we can ignore them, because overall, a business that does not make money, well, it's not going to be in business for long. But in order to make money in the long term, right, the bottom line needs to be more than just about making money in the short term. In other words, we need to focus on delivering a project or delivering the value for an organization in the long term, and ensuring that some of the metrics that we use are inclusive of other parameters as opposed to these short-term profit maximization metrics. The vision of the business, therefore, needs to reflect its portfolio of projects, and this needs to incorporate the concept of long-term stakeholder value. So this is where we start to see the difference between the single bottom line and the triple bottom line concept. Is going beyond short-term shareholder profit maximization into long-term stakeholder value creation. Okay, so this is one of the key cornerstones behind the concept of the triple bottom line, and therefore we need to be looking at more than just accounting metrics. We need to be looking at more than just one bottom line.